Well, a good afternoon to you. I'm Fox 26 meteorologist John Dawson. Wanted to jump in here real quick, just kind of give you a quick Beryl update. There hasn't been any major changes in its current status, but its forecast, its future, there are some tweaks that we need to talk about, and that definitely could be impacting you and your preparations, although I hope by this point you've sort of started wrapping things up because we are certainly looking for a tropical cyclone to make a landfall across southeast Texas tomorrow, and it will be something that is going to have some impacts on you in some way or another, depending on where you live basically and how close you will be to the center of that circulation as it begins to move onshore. So it was struggling a bit yesterday, becoming a little bit better organized today. That strengthening is still expected as we move forward, and we're also perhaps expecting even the size of the storm to expand out a little bit. We've got all sorts of watches and warnings. We'll try to kind of go through those somewhat, but pretty much everybody in the Fox 26 viewing area has some sort of tropical related alert that you need to be aware of. And again, depending on where you live is a big deal about where that center of circulation is going to take you. We now have the storm close enough that we can use radar to see where that eye might be. Typically, we're having to use satellite imagery because our radar is land-based. It can only go out into the Gulf or oceans for so long. But now that system beginning to get close enough that we can see that. As a matter of fact, from Galveston, we're talking about 210 miles from that center is where we're seeing that distance on how it's beginning to close in on the city of Houston. And I mentioned pretty much all of southeast Texas. You've probably noticed quite a bit of rain at times today, some heavy downpours. Look at all this lightning that is within this storm right now that stretches from Sealy all the way across back to the Woodlands, past through Cleveland. This is part of Beryl. This is one of those big rain bands that's feeding around it, and we're going to continue to see more of these. These were expected today, and as I said yesterday, they'll be manageable. We're not going to see a widespread problems with these types of feeder bands that we're seeing today. Tomorrow, though, they'll be so much more consistent. They'll be so much more hitting the same area repeatedly that's when we'll see some issues created with these. But as we mentioned, there's just a lot of lightning thrown in there, a lot of intense downpours, but we have enough time. Maybe you have to wait 10 or 15 minutes for some of that water to get off the roadways, but again, it's somewhat manageable today. Everything increases in its magnitude and its focus. It'll be a little bit more focused once we start looking into tomorrow's impacts. So we still have that tropical storm, but as we said this morning, it's been getting itself a little bit stronger. So we've got widespread winds from 40 to even up to 75 miles an hour when it makes its landfall tomorrow, because it again is increasing in its strength. And right now, though, we're still setting that sort of maxed out at a Cat 1 hurricane. There's not indications, strong at least, that we would bounce up to a Category 2 hurricane, but it will be somewhat in that ballpark. So just kind of keep that in mind just a little bit. So 65 mile an hour winds is what we're looking at with the 1 p.m. update. Hurricane should be by the time we get later on this evening, and then certainly staying that hurricane, most likely around 85 mile an hour winds, maybe 90 or so when it makes its landfall, more or less in Matagorda Bay, and then it'll continue to move up, kind of getting focused a little bit on the Katy and Sealy area. So if you're over in the southwest portions of town, and that includes folks in Sugar Land, Missouri City, further out into Fort Bend County, all of these areas, you're getting a little bit lined up with that very strong winds that we're possibly could be seeing, as I mentioned, as strong as 85 mile an hour at that very core that we're looking at. And so stretching out from that core, we're looking at 40 to 70 mile an hour possibilities. But it's going to move quickly. By the time we get to Monday evening, we're already beginning to clear the Fox 26 area, starting to get up near Dallas, and we'll continue to see that move through. Now, this is the big threat for anyone along the coast, is that storm surge. Traditionally speaking, this is the most deadly component to a hurricane, is that storm surge, along with that just general flooding threat that also takes place. If you are anywhere along our coastal counties, along the coast, be ready for that water to move up 3 to 6 feet. This is where it gets a little bit tricky here. Notice, folks over in League City, here's the Gulf Freeway right here. You're under that storm surge warning. You could still see 3 feet of water higher than usual. And so that could create problems even for some of these low-lying areas if you have a whole lot of rainfall that's also taking place at the same time. So this is a storm that we all need to sort of be ready for and take some precaution. All of the Fox 26 viewing area now under that tropical storm warning because of those winds. 40 to 70 miles an hour are possible. Those hurricane force winds are going to be focused where that landfall takes place. So all the way getting up close to Rosenberg is where we're seeing some of those warnings, and went ahead and included all of Brazoria County, although I don't think we'll probably get them. If you're in the belt, if you're in Pearland and you live near the Beltway 8, I don't know that is as much of a threat. You're right on the edge, but certainly could get some gusty winds as well. So this is wind gusts. So these aren't the sustained winds when we're talking about, 40 to 70 mile an hour winds or an 85 mile an hour wind at landfall. These are gusts which are, the very high end of things, and they're not long lived like what we're seeing. But notice how downtown Houston, we're getting close to 30 mile an hour winds by the end of the night tonight, or gusts of up to 40 when we get to about 2 o'clock in the morning. This is about when we expect that landfall to take place, somewhere in the 2:30 to 3:30 time range. And remember, that's when the very center, that eye, makes its landfall. Look at these 60 mile an hour gusts that are going to be coming all through our southwest of the Houston metro area, reaching all the way up into the Katy area, like I mentioned, Rosenberg earlier, continuing to head up, and even College Station could see some of those gusts in the 50 to 60 mile an hour range as that system rolls on through. Our exclusive Fox model, this is what we're looking at right now as you see that landfall taking place just on the eastern edge of Matagorda Bay, bringing lots and lots of rain. So if you're not going to be dealing with the rain over here on the southwest near that eye of the storm, then look at all these heavy downpours and rain that's going to be moving through. But as we talked about, we get to 2 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday. Most of that's clear, but notice some of these bands that are getting pulled around behind it, some of this energy also getting fired up. That's why we're continuing to be cautious on Tuesday morning, as well as the possibility of some of that rain lingering around, maybe parking itself, and that could create a bit of a problem. I hope you've already taken care of most of your preparations, but remember, think about some cash. You need gas in your vehicle and maybe even in some gas cans. Power is probably going to go out for some of us, so make sure you've got some batteries on hand for your flashlights, whatever electrical needs that you have. Make sure you're getting those met. Minimum, get that cell phone charged. Let's get some water on hand, drinking water. Maybe if you can fill that bathtub up safely and hold some water, that might be good just for if we have some water issues, and protect your windows as best you can. Gather some of those personal documents, and let's not forget about the pets or any of those other dependents that you have, that you're also making plans for them. So today, as we've talked about, it's going to get a little gusty at the end of the day. We're going to get some more of these rain bands, but we're still in time, and we're still have enough of breaks in the stormy weather today that we can continue our preparation. Well, we should be finishing up our preparations. And then the high winds start rolling in tomorrow. The heavier downpours start rolling in. And again, along the coast, that storm surge is going to make its impact. And you can't, with the wind damage that would result in that power outage, we can't just pinpoint and say, this is where we're going to have the power out. You know how that works. Sometimes in my neighborhood, I'm the only one with the power out, it seems like. And other times I've got power and my neighbors don't. So it's one of those things where you don't exactly know how that grid works sometimes. So be ready, though, for that loss in power. And hopefully it won't be an extended period of time, but then you've got yourself prepared for whatever it might bring as far as how long that might take. All right, speaking of planning for the next couple of hours, at 1:30, that's about 20 minutes from now, our state officials are holding a press conference, kind of getting ready for Beryl. Got a lot of information that they want to share. We will be live here on Fox 26. However you're seeing me right now, maybe you're on Fox Local, maybe you got the TV antenna on, maybe you're on one of our devices, and you're watching us on one of our apps. Stick around, get back here in about 20 minutes. We'll have that press conference and the latest, and we're going to continue to keep you updated throughout the rest of the afternoon and evening on the latest information on Beryl.